Black Americans are the original inhabitants of this land, with roots deeply entrenched in the soil long before terms like African American or minority were used to categorize them. However, throughout history, the government has systematically worked to erase this connection, replacing Black Americans with other groups on paper and through policy. This deliberate effort is not merely a relic of the past, it continues today, perpetuating a cycle of disenfranchisement, disconnection, and misrepresentation. Contrary to mainstream narratives, Black Americans are not descendants of solely enslaved Africans brought to America. Historical evidence and oral traditions suggest that Black people were already present in the Americas before the arrival of Europeans and Asians. Structures older than the pyramids in Egypt can be found across the Americas, built by the hands of these original inhabitants. However, the government and academia have worked to disassociate Black Americans from this history. Instead, they have promoted terms like African American to suggest foreign origins, erasing the identity of Black Americans as indigenous to this land. This misrepresentation has far-reaching consequences as it denies Black Americans their rightful place in the history of this nation. The US government has historically viewed Black Americans as threats rather than citizens. From declaring that Black people were only 3/5 of a human being to legalizing their dehumanization through slavery, the government has systematically oppressed Black people. These policies were not isolated incidents, but part of a broader strategy to disempower and disenfranchise Black Americans. Even today, the government continues to work against Black Americans. Policies favoring immigration have created pathways for Asians and Caucasians to claim roles as founders and contributors to American society, sidelining the contributions and rights of Black Americans. Immigrants who get in trouble with the law are deported to their homelands, but Black Americans, labeled as African Americans, are not given the same treatment. Why? Because they are not immigrants. They are indigenous to this land. If Black Americans were truly from Africa, why is there no concerted effort from African nations to support their claims for reparations? The truth lies in the fact that Black Americans and Africans are not the same people. Black Americans are descendants of indigenous peoples who have been systematically displaced and labeled as foreigners in their own land. The term African American was imposed to disconnect Black Americans from their true identity. While African nations have their distinct histories and struggles, Black Americans face unique challenges tied to their displacement and erasure in America. This distinction is critical because it highlights the deliberate efforts to obscure their identity and justify their mistreatment. Black Americans have been treated as prisoners of war on their own land. From mass incarceration to systemic poverty, the government has implemented policies that keep Black communities in a state of oppression. The legal system was designed to criminalize Black existence, making it legal to kill, imprison, and disenfranchise Black people under the guise of law and order. This same government exists today, with its roots firmly planted in the ideologies of the past. It is not a coincidence that Black communities continue to face disproportionate levels of police violence, economic hardship, and political disenfranchisement. The system was built to perpetuate these injustices, ensuring that Black Americans remain marginalized. Despite these efforts, Black Americans are awakening to the truth of their identity and history. The world is beginning to see the cracks in the narrative that has been fed to them for centuries. Black Americans are not foreigners, they are the original people of this land. As this awakening grows, so does the demand for recognition and reparations. The government and those complicit in this erasure will no longer be able to hide behind false narratives. The truth is powerful, and it will prevail. The struggle of Black Americans is not merely a fight for equality, it is a fight for recognition, identity, and justice. The government's role as an adversary in this struggle cannot be ignored. From historical displacement to modern-day oppression, the evidence is clear. The government has actively worked to erase Black Americans from their own history. But this narrative is changing. As the truth comes to light, the world will be forced to reckon with the undeniable reality of who Black Americans are, the original inhabitants of this land whose contributions and sacrifices have shaped the very foundation of America.